Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about overall as far as the political process is concerned. There seems to be talks that are now supposed to start again on Tuesday. Of course, that will remain to be seen, considering of course that the meeting that the PTI is having at this time and deliberating on whether they want to continue these talks or not, how incremental these talks are to actual political process and the continuation of it. We'll be talking about that. Also, we saw the Chief of Army Staff speak today at the passing out parade, and there's certain significant things he talked about. Let's hear what he had to say about conventional warfare versus what's happening as far as misinformation is concerned.
To us, nothing is more sacred than the safety and security of our people, and no duty is more binding than the defense of our motherland. As professional officers, you will be armed and trained to fight against visible enemies. However, I am particularly concerned about information warfare unleashed from within, from across the borders and beyond. Through self-awareness, you will have to delineate the blurring lines between perceptions and reality. Our enemies are hell-bent upon driving a wedge between our people and armed forces for their ulterior motives.
Right, he's talking about conventional warfare versus misinformation that is being spread. That's significant. We want to talk about this. He also talks about enemies within the country and outside, and the effect of driving a wedge between the armed forces and the people particularly. That's significant over time. Of course, we've seen the narratives that have been built and their ramifications on overall, as the COS says, the relationship between the armed forces and its people, Pakistani public, Pakistani people, you and I. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Saif, Jamshed, Baryar, who's a political analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Abdullah, Mumtaz, Khaloon from the PTI. Thank you for joining us. And we'll also be joined by Qaisar Sheikh from the PML-N. Qaisar Saab, can you hear me? Ji, before I go to Saif, before I go to Saif Saab here, Qaisar Saab, how significant do you see this address of the Chief of Army Staff as he spoke today? Is he he talks about conventional warfare. He also talks about the misinformation that is being spread. What is your overall feeling about what was said today? Was it unconventional? How do you look at it?
Mahrukh, it is very important talk by the Chief of Army Staff at a crucial time. You see, he talked at length when he came back from his tour to China. So that was a very important tour, and during that tour, various things were discussed. In the region, there has been recently China played a role in Saudi Arabia and Iran's new relation, and then again, Army Chief mentioned about the local politics, that the politicians should not be against establishment, particularly against the establishment, and they should not talk much about it. Even in all those countries, establishment role is also very important. And Army Chief rightly said that when last time there was a discussion in National Assembly, then also it was discussed that the social media is not playing the right part in the political affairs of Pakistan. They are against talking and discussing about the establishment and armed forces, and that is not in the interest of the country. I fully agree with his sentiments. I could not hear the whole speech of Army Chief today, but I just learned from headlines that he talked about these matters of about this imposing by various parties to take interest in the matters of the army. And I feel that they have rightly mentioned that the power is with the people. People are powerful, and they will always stand by the
Okay,
power
Sab,
of
I'm going to
people.
come back to you. I think there's also going to fix the audio. There's a problem with that. Saif Sab, how, particularly the misinformation that the army chief talked about. He talked about also, as far as the narrative building, not that he used the word narrative, but it seems like misinformation that he's talking about. How significant do you think this is? It's a little unconventional, or do you think that it doesn't seem like part of the course, the normal conversation, or is it? What's your overall take on this?
I think, Mahrukh, first of all, thank you for having me here today. I personally do believe that in these times of the 21st century, we're truly living in an era of cyber warfare. And it is pretty much true that today, in order to maybe catalyze a problem somewhere in the world, you truly do not need physical presence, as we've seen in Pakistan's case so far. That day I was analyzing the hashtags that are generated on social media platforms like Twitter, and I was alarmed that most of the hashtags that are being generated to bring about anti-state sentiments in the average Pakistani youngster, they are being generated from Europe. So therefore, he's very right to point out that we need to define that very thick line difference between what is our benefit and what's not. So the narrative building that today is being sponsored is certainly something that is being sponsored from the Western side. And it's being sponsored from those political outwings, or those maybe political sentiments that are very much anti-Pakistan in nature. The average youngster who's 18, 19 or 20 years old, where does he get the information from? He logs on to Facebook, he logs on to Twitter, because the era of authentic news is something that is very much eliminated from the life of the average person.
Misinformation, I think it's very
misinformation.
relevant, and I think that he talked about misinformation. There's so much of it out there that I think it's very difficult to actually differentiate about what's accurate with, what's accurate, what's true, and what's just propaganda.
It's actually very difficult to decipher between propaganda and the news. In the times of conventional news media, we were all sitting in front of that TV screen, right? And that TV screen was being directed, it was being produced, the news was being made, it was being set, it was being broken by some expertise that was behind it. And it was
also giving you that one version that was, authenticated.
And that narrative was confined according to the social, political and cultural narratives of the particular place that news was casted to. So in today's era, if someone's telling you about Pakistan, sitting somewhere maybe 4,000 miles away from Pakistan, what interest do they have to maybe protect the economic or political or sovereign interests of Pakistan? So we're truly living in alarming times.
Right, let me come back to you. Abdullah, as far as this address is concerned, before I move on, isn't it true that this is also, the army, the chief of army staff saying that perhaps it is now time for political parties to come on one page, and what does the PTI overall feel about that? What is your overall perception of what the next steps are going to be? Are the negotiations going to continue as planned? What is the status at this time?
Mahrukh, thank you for having me on your show. First of all, in relation to what the Army Chief said today at the passing out parade, I have to say that he's very correct that we are living in the age of information warfare, fifth generation warfare. We saw how our eastern neighbor tried to use that to a maximum effect with the EU Disinfo Lab that was uncovered in 2019, and a dossier for that was presented to the United Nations. So we have got those unfriendly, hostile nations surrounding Pakistan and some in the West who are trying to undermine the Pakistani state by picking up causes that are not relevant in Pakistan. But as far as political stability is concerned, as far as real news is concerned, we have to come back to Pakistan, because Pakistan right now is in the throes of a constitutional crisis. We have what's called...
Let me interject 1 second. He also mentioned within Pakistan. And what do you think he means when he talks about within Pakistan? We've also recently had, as far as backlash on the former COS, and I think that what has been said is no secret. What is your what is G?
Mahrukh, my take on this is, my party's take on this is that these comments are for the Gulbhushan Yadavs residing in Pakistan, those undercover sleeper Indian agents who are trying to do what they can to destabilize Pakistan, and it is the duty of every Pakistani to stand up against them and protect the Pakistani state. But as far as the political situation is concerned, I have to say the dialogue has hit a roadblock. The most major roadblock is that when 2 or 4 different parties are trying to negotiate, there's an enabling environment, and the enabling environment is fostered by both sides. Here what we have is, we have a litany of human rights abuses that being conducted by the fascist regime in Islamabad. We saw the raid and ransacking of Pervez Lai's house last night, where an armored vehicle was used to storm into his house, even though he had bail in Pakistan. I saw some tweets last night. People were saying, if people in bail are being treated like this, how are people who are not on bail being treated? So you can see the case of Ali Amin Gandapur, who's being taken around all the towns and cities of Pakistan.
But
like
Abdullah, isn't it true? Of course, your reservations and your party's reservations it's been, they have been on. They're quite clearly on the map, so to speak. They're quite documented. But isn't it true that in the interest of the country at this time, in the interest of political stability at this time, perhaps it's important to move on and put those considerations aside in the larger interest of country?
How can you put aside the interests of the safety of a Pakistani whose house is bombarded, raided in the middle of the night, no warrants whatsoever? The person has been guaranteed bail. I mean, this is pure thuggery. I mean, this law of the jungle prevails. We have a motley crew of fascists in Islamabad who are actively disobeying the Supreme Court.
Okay, then I want to come on. If you're saying it's hit a snag as far as these negotiations are concerned, I want to later talk about what is the plan as far as your party is concerned. The next course of action. Which of course we saw the former Prime Minister talk about it. He tweeted about what he plans to do, but he hasn't yet given any kind of roadmap, so to speak. But what is on the cards now, if it's hit a snag, as you say, those negotiations? I will come and talk to you about that. Let me go to Qaisar Ahmed Sheikh Saab. Ji, Qaisar Saab, what you think is going to, as far as these negotiations are concerned, you have been saying for a while now that perhaps the only course of action, and in an unprecedented move, perhaps unconventional, one can say, with the the CJ saying that let the parties come to some sort of an agreement on the date for the elections, some sort of a way forward. Do you think that is likely to still go ahead? Do you think that's likely to move forward or no?
Mahrukh, as you know, I have been persistently saying that the only option available is to negotiate. The politicians should negotiate between themselves. Now, it is a very good move that they have come to table and they have started negotiating. And I think I'm optimistic about it. Things will be.
But the rep from the PTI seems to think that he's not very optimistic about these talks.
They can't do anything else. This is the only option available because they wanted to go to the election. And you see, since 1 year they have been asking to have early election. All their efforts were failed, rightly so, because they wanted to make conflict between the parties and confrontation with harming Pakistan, not only harming Pakistan economy, but they are talking very adversely about Pakistan army and establishment. You see, these things are not in favor of Pakistan. I have mentioned that foreign direct investment has been suffered because of conflict between the parties. In 1970, what happened to Pakistan? Why Pakistan was dismembered? Because of the not agreeing on any solution by two parties, People's Party and Awami League at that time. And then later on 1977, elections were held. Then again, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto election, his party, People Party, won the election, and election results were not agreed. And there was conflict after the election between Qawmi Ittihad and People Party. Now you see, these things have not given any benefit to Pakistan. And consistently, elections are there, but who will be guaranteeing to accept the results of the election? Now, establishment has become
Yes,
apolitical.
these are issues that we've been talking about for a while. That who's going to accept the results of the elections if they do happen in this piecemeal manner. The point is that moving forward, as far as these negotiations, given give or take a few weeks, as far as the date of the elections is concerned, what do you think is the real reason? Is there a face saving involved for the opposition at this point? What is it? Because if it's at this point, they're not going to happen on the date that they were supposed to. I mean, there's no doubt about that. What do you think it is?
Mahrukh, you have rightly said. You see, even from today, we count now 90 days, then it will become beginning of August. So we are agreeing on elections in September. So what is the difference in 1 month? The only 1 month difference is there, and the budget is there up to end of June, and no interim government can give budget. So it is important that this government remains at least for 2 months to get past the budget, so that the next year's financial matters are planned. So this is very important, but you see, PTI has been only making confrontation. They are not thinking about the benefit of the country. Neither they are talking anything positive about the establishment. They have been saying at that time they were claiming that they are on one pay, and later on they give all this reasoning of not agreeing this. This going out of this.
Yes, sir. Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Saif. Saif, sir, in your opinion, if you look at the political landscape at this time, with the political parties sitting together, they haven't been for a while. There hasn't been, there's been talk, certainly, the move to and fro, and then even now there is disagreement between political parties themselves whether there should be talks at all. The future of these talks, how frail is it, in your opinion?
Mahrukh, I'll be very honest over here. Abdullah is my brother, and I really respect him for being this aspiring young politician from a certain political party. I'm talking about the PTI. But when a representative of that political party, while sitting on national television, begins his very argument that there's a bunch of fascists sitting in Islamabad, then what's the mindset of dialogue that you're bringing into Islamabad's conferences to begin with? Now, I'd want a little clarity from my brother over here. The first clarity I would be wanting is that as far as I know, and I'll totally go with what Qaisar Saab said, he's an expert at economy, he's an expert in finance, not only in politics, and I really would consider the fact that he's talked about the economic fragility we're in. Now, at this particular point, if you're beginning the conference by having a mindset of the fact that the entire PDM is a group of fascists, those conferences are bound to fail, number one. And second, my brother over here, Abdullah, he needs to define that these particular conferences, these negotiations are for deciding the elections date. Right. Now, do you want an NRO or do you want an elections date? There's a difference between that. So if you're trying to mount and assert pressure onto the fact that what happened to Pervez Elahi Saab, I'll take you back into time. This is a political reality. This is not even a legal reality. It happens in every government. What happened with Khaja Saad Rafiq? Where were the voices of Democrats back then? What happened to Khaja Asif? Where were the voices of Democrats back then? What happened with Shahid Khaqan Abbasi? Where were the voices of Democrats back then? So this is a legal, more of a political reality that you need to be setting yourself on the tables of transparency and accountability if you call yourself a Democrat.
Fair enough, fair enough.
This is my only take on it.
And I want to come and talk about that, but we're going to have to take a break and go to Mariam Nawaz as she... Right. We're going to take a short break and come back. Right. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Gee, Abdullah, I hope you heard what Saif is here, Saif Baryar is saying. As far as, you're sitting on the table, and of course with the, the right set of frame of mind as to the negotiations and where you want them to go. Are you going to be able to put aside, differences? And like I said, because if we look at the past, it's littered again. And I don't want to go into that. I mean, that if that was wrong, as far as this is, if this is happening the way you are saying, then certainly this is also wrong. There's no doubt about that. But the question really is that, are we going to, as a political party, again, like Saif Baryar is saying, the question is the elections, and that is what your leader, the former Prime Minister, has also been saying. You want elections, you want them, according to him, as soon as possible. And so for that, you want to sit and come to an agreement. Isn't that the whole agenda as far as sitting for this meetup, or is concerned?
Mahrukh, I really respect Saif Baryar Saab. He's an elder brother. But he seems to be living in some sort of fairyland where the housefly has eaten the spider, the goat has eaten the wolf, the gazelle has devoured the cheetah, the tail has wagged the dog. Unfortunately, the reality that Pakistanis are suffering every day is that people are feeling the...
But are you denying that those things also happened? When Maryam Nawaz comes out and talks about the victimization, when she talks about what happened to her in Karachi as a woman, that the victimization that she herself, she's not talking about something that was very long ago. It's documented, it's on the screens. Faryal, Talpur, across the board, our political landscape is littered with those kind of instances, which I'm not saying that, that this is right, but there are, of course, unfortunately, there's a past. There is, according to what she says all the leadership of the PML-N, the first tier leadership, the second tier leadership, there is clear evidence of, victimization there also.
It seems that the PDM is intent on repeating the past, and if I'm not correct, Salim Baryar Sahib seems to be saying that two wrongs do justify the right here, which is not the case at all. As far as the talks are concerned, Mahrukh, we see confusion.
Then you're also saying what I'm saying, that they're both wrong. What happened in the past was wrong, and you're saying what's happening now is wrong. So if if we can agree on that, or if political parties can agree on that, then certainly there should be room enough to come to some agreement on such an important issue as the elections is for your party.
Okay, Mahrukh, the thing is, with the PDM, they have two different camps. We have the president of the PDM, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, saying that there should be no dialogue whatsoever. We've got Khwaja Asif, another dean of the PDM, saying that there should be no talks whatsoever. We have Ishaq Dar, who's trying to negotiate with us with one hand tied behind his back. And at the same time, whilst these talks are happening, what is the enabling environment around these talks? We have political activists from PTI being picked up in the middle of the night. We have my friends being detained simply because they're accompanying Khan Saab's convoy. We have Ali Amin Gandapur.
Okay, Abdullah,
let me finish actually. You have Ali Amin Gandapur, who's being paraded around all the cities of Pakistan like he's a circus animal, despite the fact that he's on bail. He has been given bail for the cases, but still, because there's no rule of law in Pakistan, it's been undermined by the government as we speak. That's the dialogue, that's the enabling environment we have. And that they say, let's have dialogue, let's talk about...
Qaisar is here from the PML-N. He can certainly answer with tales of what happened to people, political, as far as, people. And, he will, like I said, there are examples in the other political parties of what's happened. According to them, perhaps more. But the question is, what are the other options for your party now? If that doesn't happen, if the dialogues don't go forward, if the talks don't go forward, what is the next game plan? Are you waiting for instructions from the former Prime Minister himself, or is there already a plan set?
I'm not waiting for instructions from the former Prime Minister. The Chief Justice of Pakistan, Chief Justice of Pakistan, Umar Bandial Saab, is very clear. If negotiations don't render a result, elections in Punjab will happen on the 14th of May 2023. And as for the elections in Punjab, they're not being conducted by PTI, they're being conducted by the Constitution of Pakistan, Article 224.
But Abdullah, according to the CJ also, he's now said that, you know, let the parties sit and talk. And of course, the decision that was supposed to come has not yet come. He said that a decision will follow, an order will follow from the last proceedings that isn't yet here. So I want to move on a little bit and talk about, you know, I don't want to necessarily, you know, unfortunately, audios and are now a part of, unfortunately and very sadly, again, you know, going back to what COS also said, misinformation, and it really pains me to say this, that there is now an unfortunate reality in our political discourse, which is these audios. But we can't also close our eyes to what they indicate, what they say. The audios today, what is your overall narrative on the way that your party is awarding tickets, how they're going, you know, how they're being awarded, what it indicates overall as far as the earlier on judicial process is concerned, the kind of light that it shows on earlier decisions, very important decisions that have been taken by, you know, no less but the former Chief Justice of this country.
Mahrukh, as far as the judicial decisions are concerned, the PDM says that there's a 4-3 verdict. I have to say that even the 4 judges that the PDM seems to be relying upon have not said anywhere in their judgments that elections should not be conducted in 90 days in Punjab. Atar Manila Saab's judgment is also very clear.
No. Abdullah, I'm talking about the audio that came out today and what it indicates about earlier decisions pursuant to Mia Nawaz Sharif Saab also. And, you know, as far as the PML-N is concerned, the disqualification also, the narrative of the PML-N, which has been, you know, very vocally put forward by Maryam Nawaz.
I mean, PML-N's narrative is so poor that it cannot even stand on its 2 feet. If they even had a narrative.
But these audios don't authenticate it, in your opinion?
They cannot be relied upon in court. How are they adduced?
When there's openly negotiation on selling of tickets, you know, and the way that it's been, how you know, what does that indicate? What does that show? What does that, you know, indicate as far as party affiliation, the way that the process is being overall conducted, the fairness, the Riyasat-e-Medina that the former Prime Minister himself, you know, always speaks about?
Mahrukh, I'm a ticket holder from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Sargodha. I've been awarded a ticket for the Punjab Assembly. I can say with my hand on heart that myself and my family have not made any political donation whatsoever to secure this ticket. Tickets have been given by Imran Khan Saif after a 6-month-long research into each and every constituency of the Punjab. Now, if this is
the audio is incorrect, you're saying you don't, you know, what is your narrative on the audio?
Yes. The audios are fake. The audios are being used by the PDM to try and throw as much mud as they can on PTI, hoping some of it would stick. But the problem is none of it is sticking. First of all, they brought out Imran Khan's audios, supposed fake audios. Then they tried to bring out these audios. I mean, the person...
Okay, Abdullah, before I go to Qaisar Ahmed Sheikh, isn't it true that the former Prime Minister himself admitted to certain irregularities while awarding tickets during the last elections?
There were no irregularities whatsoever. And elections, the tickets were awarded to the candidates as per PTI's party policy.
He has not said openly that I awarded tickets at the behest of certain people. I shouldn't have. He has not openly said that I was misinformed. He has not openly said that I perhaps made decisions that I should not have made. Those are not things that the former Prime Minister himself has said as far as awarding of tickets is concerned. Am I wrong?
Mahrukh, in the past election, we had a parliamentary board and tickets were awarded to people, but to say that they happen as a result of an irregularity, it's over describing the situation.
Right. Okay. Let me come back to you. I think I have to go to Qaisar Saab and I'll come back to you. Ji, Qaisar Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What is your overall perception? What is your overall, as far as the audio is concerned? Certainly, what Maryam Nawaz has been saying as far as this audio is concerned, what she has, you know, consistently been saying. She said that, you know, there is a certain process which is, there is clearly an agenda. She has said that there is corrupt practice. She has said that, you know, there was victimization. She has said that there was, you know, a consistent play at, you know, in putting the former Prime Minister forward, in putting Mian Nawaz Sharif Sahab, and in making sure that he was not in the field, in the disqualification, in the orchestration, according to her, and I believe this is her word, of the overall political landscape, the way it was created. There is no secret of all these things. These audios are cases in point. Would you agree?
Mahrukh, I very much agree on Mariam Nawaz, what she said. You see, I have myself witnessed the last election at 2018. People were forced that they should not take the ticket of PML-N. In whole of my region, like I can mention you 8 districts, Miawali, Bakkar, Khushab, Hafzabad, Jamshed, and all these districts, only one seat was of PML-N, my seat from Jamshed. You see, most of the candidates even could not get the ticket. There was a clear intervention, and one understands about it. And this indication that was mentioned in the argument is very clear. That why Mr. Imran Khan, this is not the practice of the party. It is normally the board which selects the candidates. If one person is selecting the candidate, and there is a clear audio that such and such amount is required to see Mr. Imran and also to get ticket. So they have not denied up to now. No one from PTI has denied that this is not the audio from their.
Abdullah Sahab is saying that it's fake.
Yes. Okay, but the gentleman whose voice is there, is supposed to be there, he did not deny about it. But I don't go into that detail. What I say is that what about the corruption or misappropriations in $3 billion loans which were given to most of the wealthy business people? Because I come from the business family. I had been president of Karachi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I know the people. The $3 billion at this crucial time, when we don't have money, we don't have reserves. Our reserves are depleting. We are asking the IMF and other friendly countries for the reserves. And at that time, only 2.5 years ago, State Bank allocated $3 billion to what they themselves mentioned in the National Assembly Finance Committee. The State Bank governor said that 580 companies were given that amount. And I know that even those 580 companies consist of about 200 or 250 wealthy groups. And that money was given so that the funds should be given in the next election by those people who have got 0% that loans for 10 years. No, huge loans. And the machinery, I know that about 50% of the machinery has not been even in operation. The machinery is imported. Dollars have already been spent, and then that machinery is not being used to increase the capacity of production capacity. So why? What is the logic? We have asked the State Bank governor to give us the names of the parties and the amount. Why the amount of $3 billion equals to 85,000 crores at present day value. So the party, the SMEs are not even given one crore. $10 million rupees is not given to SMEs or to agriculture. What even though they give their collateral. So what was the misappropriation?
Right, let me come back to you. Saif, overall, as far as this is, you know, the way that things are happening at this time, it's certainly very unfortunate, of course. You know, we are at this time debating, and, you know, like I said, it's a political reality when you talk about audios at this time. It's a political reality of, you know, the misinformation, information, the way that it's come out, the COS also talking about that. What kind of a landscape do you anticipate as far as politics is concerned? Isn't it getting murkier and murkier overall?
I think, Mahrukh, the political optics seem to be very depressing at the moment. Because if the election date has to be announced, there has to be this air of a little coordination between political parties beforehand as well. Because ultimately, we've seen this happening, and I think it's in front of myself, it's in front of you as well. After every election, the party that loses, they say the elections are not transparent, they're not fair. So I think there needs to be a working mechanism before the elections happen, that whatever, in fact, the biggest agenda of these conferences right now happening between the PDM and PTI leadership should be that whatever the results of the election will be, we will accept those results, and we will not meddle into politics for at least 5 years, because we need economic consistency and stability. So the political optics at this particular point are seemingly very much depressing, and I'll just add into a little information here. Abdullah got a little emotional when he said that for Saif Saab, 2 wrongs definitely make a right. I was in mid of my talk. What happened in the previous government was something very much wrong. What's happening right now, I know that Parvez Ilahi Saab is on protected bail till at least the 6th of May. And I think what is happening, it's not really justified. So at the end of the day, when we talk about legal equity, every political party, be it the government, be it the opposition, is entitled to it. As a person who believes in the Constitution and the person who believes in the supremacy of the constitutions above and beyond these political parties, I think that 2 wrongs can never make 1 right, but at least it was a silent admission from Abdullah's side that 2 wrongs are trying to make in 1 right. So he did admit to the fact that what happened during his government's tenure was something wrong as well. But in order to correct these political optics, I think the PTI leadership needs to change its mindset, because ultimately a leniency was shown by the PDM. The PDM said that we'll be having elections in October. And multiple times I think we've debated upon the fact that we see elections happening in October or November. Now,
what do you think, in your opinion, what is behind this rhetoric, one has to say, or this constant, as far as the PTI is concerned, the former Prime Minister is concerned, this hanging on to the deadline. Of course, they say that it's about the Constitution or whatever, but we have a Chief Justice at this time who's also saying, sit with each other and come to some sort of a practical solution. That doesn't seem to be, it doesn't look like it's going to be those, the date in May, 14th May. It's not possible at this time.
Currently, I think we've gone beyond the idea of 14th May, because what actually PTI wants at the moment is that things come to resolve before the budget is passed.
Okay.
And what the PDM wants at the moment is for things to get into resolution mode after the budget is passed. The only hurdle is, I think, a hurdle of political mindset and egos. Because ultimately the egos are clashing.
Do you think it also has to do with, as far as, I had somebody say yesterday on my program from the PTI that it's about certain appointments that also have to happen. And there needs to be, there doesn't seem to be a lot of confidence the PTI has at this time in those changes and what they will mean for.
Mahrukh, I don't even get the idea that why do political parties are apparently so much cautious and careful about appointments. Now, appointments are something that every state has to do after a prescribed time. Constitutional appointments are a political reality of every political democracy that we see around. They're very much in divorce and in separation from politics. They're the affair of the state. They have to go by. So I don't even think that the argument should be of certain critical and crucial appointments, because that is something that the state has to do in the wider interest, no matter what. So I believe that one of the most critical elements right now would be to have a recorrection in the political mindset, to come onto the table on Tuesday with a mindset that we need to resolve things. And you can only resolve things when, for example, you back down on certain hardline narratives you have, and honestly and obviously you will
and come to some sort of a practical solution, which is
and I think September being the elections date that the government has really agreed upon to. And if they push it a little back from October to September, which I see they will, which is something that I see clearly in the political optics, I think that's fair enough.
And you think that what is behind this, this dogmatic refusal to accept that date?
I think the only thing there is that I wouldn't want to say it, because I think it'll catalyze a debate between myself and Abdullah, but I think it's hardline narratives that Khan Saab has always had. And once he decides a particular thing, it's very much difficult for him to back out from them.
Let me ask Abdullah, I think unfortunately we're also running out of time. Abdullah, what is behind this? Of course, as far as the Constitution is concerned and what the Constitution says, all of those things, I understand that is your narrative. But what is behind this refusal to accept the date of October as being the general elections to be held all over the country?
Mahrukh, the thing is, it's not just my perspective, it's the constitution, it's the perspective of every Pakistani. It's what the Constitution of Pakistan says, it's what the judgment of the lower high court says, it's what the judgment of the Supreme Court says. And one of the reasons why PTI is not believing what the PDM is trying to do is that we've seen how the finance ministry told the Supreme Court that they do not have money to conduct elections in Punjab. They cannot cough up 21 billion rupees. Yet when we saw the accounts, we saw that they had 1400 billion rupees in their accounts. They also said that they didn't have enough security.
Okay, Abdullah, if there was agreement, if there was, if you could believe that the government will stand by its word, it would be acceptable. Is that true?
The government has not stood on its word. The government is clearly running away from elections. It is fully aware of the fact that PTI will sweep in Punjab and KPK, and that is the doomsday scenario for PDM, which is why...
Don't sweep. Okay, my last question to you. If you don't sweep the elections as you expect, will you accept the results?
Well, if PDM tries to manage and manipulate these elections, then the economic and political instability will continue in Pakistan. And who's to say that elections may even happen in October? I mean, the PDM can say, no, we're not going to have elections in October, we're going to have them next year. So when you have one party that keeps trying to push away the goalposts,
Abdullah, isn't it true that when we have the general elections, all parties will have to accept the results and move forward for the next 5-year term? If we want political stability in the larger interest of the country and the economic interests, that we're still waiting for the IMF at this time.
Mahrukh, this is precisely what I was saying in 2018 when Maryam Nawaz decided to disrespect the people's mandate and started calling Imran Khan a selected prime minister. And it was very clear that the PDM had not accepted the people's mandate. It is very clear that they're not accepting the people's
mandate. Now you're calling Shehbaz Sharif Saab a selected prime minister. There seems to be rather certain, similar names being thrown back and forth. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Saif Jamshed Baryar Saab, thank you for joining us. Qaisar Ahmad Sheikh Saab, thank you for being with us. Abdullah, Mumtaz, Khaloon, thank you for joining us today. As far as the overall situation at this time is concerned, certainly there's no formal rejection at this time, and certainly their talks are scheduled to continue on Tuesday. Let's hope that happens. Let's hope that political parties can put aside their differences and move towards some kind of a working relationship that can then lead to some political stability, economic stability, which is what we've been talking about. And perhaps this is that time where that is most essential and most needed in the political realm, certainly in the economic realm. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.